As a kid, I played a bunch of different kinds of video games, but more often than not you could find me playing a classic platformer, whether it was Sonic, Mario, or my personal favourite, Crash Bandicoot. And even though more recent times have had the platformer genre fall from the mainstream spotlight, there are still plenty of games to rave about in the indie scene. I'm Josh the Top Hat Gamer, and these are my top 10 favourite indie platformers. Number 10. Braid. One of the first real breakout hits of the indie scene, Braid invites players to experience its pleasant, painterly world with puzzles that can bring a grown man to tears. Seriously, as a pure platformer, Braid would be rather unremarkable, but with its wide variety of time-bending powers and rules, it becomes something really special. Still one of the best puzzle platformers of all time, Braid not only challenges you with its temporal puzzles, but it challenges you with a vague message that, to this day, still isn't really clear. At least we can always go back and appreciate the puzzles. Number 9. Broforce. Broforce is certainly not top of the class when it comes to pure platforming. What puts it on the list of my favourite indie platformers is the game's dedication to its over-the-top, hyper-masculine presentation, and how that's represented through the core gameplay tenet of blasting everything in your way to reach the objective. Everything from the game's face-melting soundtrack to its varied cast of bros is awesome, and Broforce knows just which buttons to push to get me totally hyped up. Even if there are better platformers when it comes to, actual platforming, Broforce brings its A-game to the table in every other respect, and more than makes up for it in raw firepower. Number 8. Limbo. Whenever people talk about indie platformers and indie games in general, Limbo is always bound to make an appearance. It immediately caught me off guard with its stark, monochrome visuals and nightmarish world where almost everything exists to kill the poor young boy you control. But beyond the unsettling impression left by Limbo's less than jovial presentation, the game has endeared itself to me with a series of brilliantly challenging puzzles and a handful of truly memorable moments, including a remarkable showdown with a certain eight-legged freak. Truly an encounter that I won't soon forget. Number 7. Guacamelee. Metroidvania-style power-ups and exploration, Lucha Libre-inspired beat-em-up combat, and most importantly, slick, thoughtful platforming. Slam all of these together and you get Guacamelee, one of the most colourful, fun platformers in recent memory. Utilizing plenty of Mexican culture as well as general pop culture, the game creates a fantastic, light-hearted tone that helps to set itself apart from the crowd. Once the game has your attention, it puts you in a headlock and refuses to let go, with its incredibly satisfying suplex-heavy combat and reality-shifting platforming sections that will keep even the most skilled gamer on their toes. Number 6. Super Meat Boy. What is there to say about Super Meat Boy that practically every gamer and their mum hasn't said about the game before? It has possibly the tightest platforming gameplay ever, and throws challenge after challenge at you, until you either beat the game or the game beats you. Super Meat Boy is one of those games that's so expertly crafted that when you die, you know it was all on you. The game doesn't offer a lot more than incredibly polished core gameplay aside from a few laughs here and there, but when everything is this well made, you don't need anything else. Super Meat Boy is one of the best examples of an incredibly solid base being more than enough to make a great game. Number 5. Mark of the Ninja. If you know me, you know I love stealth games. From Metal Gear Solid to Hitman, few video game genres engage me like the tense action of a stealth game. So imagine my surprise when one of the best stealth games I've ever played turned out to also be a 2D platformer. Mark of the Ninja cements itself on top of the stealth ladder with responsive controls, plenty of gameplay options, and a number of different paths through each level, allowing for a good level of player control and replayability. Whether you're the type to jump silently above patrols of armed guards, or more of the sneaky stabby type, Mark of the Ninja has a lot to offer, and it's all topped off with a great visual style that looks almost as though it was ripped straight from an awesome Saturday morning cartoon. Number 4. Oddworld New N Tasty. Back when I was little, long before my fascination with top hats, I had a PlayStation. It wasn't my first console, but it was the first one I truly cherished. One of the games that helped the PS1 leave such an impression on me was Abe's Odyssey. The grim, imaginative Oddworld was full of personality, and the gameplay, while way too difficult for me at the time, was a tense take on the platforming genre with slower, more thoughtful gameplay than I'd ever seen before. So, when Oddworld New N Tasty gave me the opportunity to revisit one of my childhood favourites but with updated visuals and polished gameplay, I was speechless. Even more surprising is that Oddworld New N Tasty lived up to my mountainous expectations, serving as a superior stand-in for a game that, while still near and dear to me, is somewhat awkward to easily revisit in its original form. Number 3. Ori and the Blind Forest. You may remember Ori and the Blind Forest making an appearance in my top 10 of 2015 video, making it no surprise that it would show up again here. There's so much to love about Ori and the Blind Forest, from its soothing colour palette and silky smooth animations, to its fast-paced platforming and Metroidvania-style power-ups and progression. In addition to its top-notch gameplay and presentation, Ori and the Blind Forest knows how to tug at your heartstrings, and while it may not have the most engaging story in video games, it does what it does fairly well, and I'll always be able to attach a handful of emotions to the game as a result. Number 2. Inside. The newcomer to the world of indie platformers, Inside not only joins its big brother Limbo on the list, but far exceeds it. Sure, the games both feature similar gameplay elements and dark, depressing tones, but Inside just pulls it all off so much better. The puzzles on offer are far more engaging than most of what Limbo had to offer, and many of Inside's sequences and moments are just made more memorable thanks to the limited exposure we have to them. And to top it all off, Inside ends with a sequence that might stick with me for the rest of my game-playing life, as it is both deeply unsettling and ultimately empowering all at the same time. Number 1. Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is the coolest indie platformer ever in my eyes, and it stands as a worthy successor to classic retro games like DuckTales and Mega Man, while incorporating concepts from more recent games like Dark Souls to create an experience all of its own. Shovel Knight oozes personality with its phenomenal soundtrack and colourful, varied environments, as well as its awesome character designs. While not necessarily groundbreaking, pardon the pun, Shovel Knight would have conquered the worlds of 2D platforms back in the genre's heyday, and even now it holds its own against the best that the industry has to offer. And there you have it, my top 10 favourite indie platformers. As usual, this is all just my opinion, and I'd love to hear about the indie platformers you classy people enjoy, as well as what you think about the games that I've listed here. Let me know down in the comments, and game on!